Do you have a beer, Prime Minister? I understand we're going to have a beer together. Is that right?
Yes, of course. I got myself
you
in honor of Mannion's.
I've got a Molson and you've got a 50. So
I got a 50. Aren't we properly? Properly. I mean, this is our morning show, right? I mean, this
right.
is what we were not exactly able to do. The thing is that the 50 glass has been.
You even got the glass.
It's been in my constituency office forever, and it's there we go. I'm
all right.
But
well, this goes back, and we'll tell the Mannion story. Cheers. Cheers. It's nice to see you, my friend. How are you? That's nice to have a beer with you, even though we can't be sitting across from each other.
Well, at least this time we've done a lot of virtual stuff, but this time I'm the one in Montreal, so at least that's fun.
There's a switch for me. Are you in your riding office?
I am. I'm in the heart of beautiful Papineau.
Do you remember when I told you you'd never win Papineau?
I remember you being slightly less definitive than that, because never to bet against me, but you were worried for your old friend.
Yeah, I said to you, what are you, nuts? You're going to run in Papineau? What are you, nuts? And you have been the MP in Papineau for how many years now?
About 13 years now, yeah.
Very, very pleased to eat my words, Prime Minister.
You know what? And well, I mean, this riding, it was always, just such a, Park X, Villeray, the heart of Montreal in so many different ways, that being there for the people in this community taught me how to be there for people right across the country, and that link was the one that really, really mattered so much for me. The kinds of families here are families we find in every corner of the country.
And I remember you saying, when I asked you, I said, how are you going to win that riding? And you said, I'm going to do the work. And you did the work, and the people keep rewarding you for that. And I think that's absolutely terrific. And now circumstances have changed. We're both Montrealers. You're in Montreal. I'm in Peterborough visiting friends. All of us tested. All of us socially distanced. Only 4 of us in the house. And now I live in British Columbia, and you still live in Ottawa. How are you enjoying Ottawa, sir?
Ottawa is a great place to bring up a family.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I wanted to ask you about how as time goes by in the office, how are Zav and the kids handling it? How does it change for you as a dad?
They're a little more aware. They were more aware of the last election than they had been of previous elections.
Right.
Zav, he's 14, he's 5'11" now, and he's playing basketball all the time, which he's great at, and he's starting to box, which thank God he's not yet great at, which still gives me a bit of a chance when we goof around. But they're, Ella the other day just came into the office. She was happened to be going running some errands, and she decided, hey, I'll just stop in and see my dad, and just came in to hang out in the office with us. It was just a lovely surprise in the middle of the day, and of course had about a whole 5 minutes for her, but it was nice to be able to see them whenever we can. We're all trying to grab those moments whenever we can.
Zav's got to be a little bit more aware of everything around him now, politically and otherwise. And I had a conversation with you when the election was underway. We saw each other. We had a nice little visit in British Columbia. You had a moment between events, and I said to you, I was getting concerned for you as a friend, because campaigning has changed in the country. Has it affected the family at all?
Yeah, of course it has. The family, Sophie as always, but the kids have gotten used to the idea that they need a certain amount of thick skin, that people are going to have opinions about them and about our family in a negative way. This campaign had moments that were slightly more intense than others, in terms of things said, in terms of rhetoric. But at the same time, in the conversations I had with them, I said, look, 80% of Canadians are totally aligned in doing the right kinds of things, in getting vaccinated and sticking together and being there for our neighbors. Even more than that, you can't let the loudest people shape your image of what this country is or what my job is. It's about, serving, people right across the country with huge differences in perspectives and opinions and situations. But it's about looking for the things that draw us together. You can always find reasons why Canadians are on different sides of this issue or that issue, but always spending more time, which is sort of counterintuitive in this day and age, focusing on the ways we are alike and aligned, even through really tough times. That's certainly been really important for me to wrap my head around the times we're living in. And, what can I do but share that with my kids?
As your friend, I think I said to you on the day in Vancouver, as I was going out the door, when Jess and I were leaving, I think I said to you, pay attention to your security team. It's getting ugly out there. And I would imagine as a dad and as a husband, that's something no other prime minister has had to deal with in my memory.
The officers around me are great, and I don't have, no matter what's going on, much, if ever, any worries for my personal safety. But the worry was the volunteers and regular folks coming out to our events, the owners of the businesses that we were doing a thing at, the journalists there to do their job and try and cover the election, who were brunt of some serious negativity as well. That's not the way we're supposed to do things in Canada. Look, I mean, I signed up for it. I put my face on a lawn sign on a telephone pole. Like I'm willing to take a certain amount of grief. I find it harder when it's directly directed at my family, but that's when I watch. But a lot of people didn't sign up for that and have to be around it anyway, either covering it, or even the RCMP officers out there keeping people safe, keeping those protesters safe, even as they're screaming at them. It's not something that we should have in our political processes in this country. And I think we saw it in a very, specific moment in the campaign that sort of made a whole bunch of people wonder. And then we've seen since a coming together of the country, a parliament that is working more collaboratively, and things are on the right track, as Canadians overwhelmingly, regardless of the various parties they voted for, when you look at the common themes between most of the progressive parties, doing more on the environment, doing more on reconciliation, doing more on supporting vulnerable people and fighting intolerance. Like there's a big consensus about listening to science and moving forward to end COVID across the country that we can be reassured about. Democracy doesn't mean unanimity, but it does mean making sure people are broadly together in the path forward.
Speaking of that, somebody asked me the other day, and I couldn't answer the question. I said, I'll ask the prime minister. Does somebody knock on your door and say, boss, well, we get some bad news from Dr. whoever? How do you find out about things like the new variant? Who does somebody knock on your door? Somebody put a file on your desk? Does the team gather? Like, how does it work? How do you get the news?
I get the news various ways. I glance at the news when I wake up on my tablet. I have a morning briefing every day that fills me in on the stories, the hot stories, the things that are of concern to people. And then around COVID, often I'll have a specific phone call on that where we'll talk about various things that are coming up, various issues. For example, a few weeks ago, we had our one of our regularly scheduled conversations around COVID, where the conversation was about booster shots and NACI recommendations and how we were going to roll them out and what age ranges and stuff. This was like a month ago we're having this, or however long it was. And someone said, there's one other thing. We're hearing about this variant that they're talking about coming out of South Africa. It doesn't have a name yet, but we're worried about it, or maybe it did. It was already called Omicron. But that was, for example, the first I heard of it. And then then I actually turned around and to the great despair of much of my team, when I hear something in my news brief, one of my first things I'll do as soon as I get home is turn to Google and try and see if I can't see more and find out more a little bit about this. And
So you're like
I'm a
everybody
consumer
else.
of information. Yeah,
You're like everybody else. Go
we've
to
all
Google.
become armchair epidemiologists right now through these past 2 years.
And somebody asked me also everybody who has a job in this country has to, a lot of us are working from home, but a lot of people, they got to get up at 7 because they know their commute is a half an hour, and then they got to be here and their day is pretty much the same. I would imagine one of the great things about being prime minister is not one day is the same as the one before it, but how how far in advance do you know what you're going to do, and who decides what you're going to do at what time? Like today we scheduled this at 3:00, and when I say we, I mean me and the people around you, so have set up your day. So it like who delivers the schedule and who decides, and what kind of say do you have?
Well, a few months ago, I said to my comms team, as usual, we're going to be doing the Terry Christmas show.
Right.
And they're like, oh, no, he's not at home anymore. You don't have to do that. I said, no. I know that. I followed. And we're going to do the Terry Money Christmas show. I go, okay. So I give that instruction that we're going to figure out how to do it. And of course, I texted back and forth with you to say, okay, my folks are going to be figuring out how to do it. And then they figure out the time for it, and they figure out when it's work. I mean, because they knew we were going to talk about beer and manions, they put it quite wisely at the end of the day after I've done most of my other year enders, so that the looseness that comes in doesn't, if it's here in this interview, at least it won't continue into other year enders that might be supposed to be more serious.
As one of your people said to me a few years ago, please don't cause a diplomatic incident. And we should say, you mentioned Manion's. Manion's, for people who are watching and don't know, Manion's was a classic working class tavern in St. Henry that was there for 1,000 years, isn't there anymore, sadly. And Justin and I, when we became friends, used to have a summer date there at least once a summer, and we would sit and chat.
We'd order the number 2, and I'd order a beer, and you'd order 2 beers. I remember that being very impressive. That you just say right away, they won't get warm. Don't worry.
Yeah, well, I had been up since 4:00, so it was kind of like dinner for me. And we would sit and shoot the breeze and try and solve the problems of the world. And that was the genesis of these kinds of chats. And also for people who are maybe watching for the first time, as I said to so many people, I'm not a journalist. I'm not here to talk to the Prime Minister as a journalist. I'm here to catch up with my old friend just before the holidays. And that's why I ask silly questions like, you have to tell the people of the country the joy of a white spot burger, which I know on the campaign trail, you were often seen in British Columbia, including the lunch that you had with me and my wife. In your hotel room was white spot burgers. Tell people what the joy of a white spot burger is.
Well, see, as a Montrealer, I'm all about the Maine smoked meat. I'm all about real bagels, not those buns with holes in them that they serve elsewhere in the country. We're very specific and anchored in the right sorts of things. Well, the equivalent for me in my BC roots was I spent my summers and I spent years going out to visit my mom's family in Vancouver. And we used to go to the Park Royal White Spot where they actually had, even in the late 70s, actually they still have it in some places, the drive-ins where they put in the long tray that hooked into the windows. And you could just eat your burgers in the backseat of your car, which was just the coolest thing ever. I got hooked on white spot burgers, and I've taken people from the East Coast to BC for white spot, and I'll be moaning over these deluxe triple O's and it's the sauce and the this and that, and people are like, okay, yeah, it's a good burger. I said, no, it's not just a good burger, it's the best burger. And I think you sort of have to be raised on them a
Yeah.
little bit to
Yeah.
be just almost religious about them.
Yeah.
But for me, like the team knows if I'm out in Vancouver, as sometimes happens, or in BC for like an overnight trip only and then flying back, I've got to get good West Coast, sushi, and I got to get some white spot. And if we can't do them, well, one of them be on the plane on the way home. We'll either bring sushi for the way home or white spot for the way home. But it's a pretty important thing to me.
That's one of the things that's why they call it the legendary. You mentioned traveling across the country. Would you not admit that that's kind of a little bit of a joy to be able to be the guy who says, let's go, when it's time for you to leave? When you get on the airplane, do you just say to the pilot, okay, I'm here, let's go?
No,
Okay.
I remember my mom teaching me early on that punctuality is, I think she used it, it's the courtesy of kings. If people will wait for you, you should make sure they're not waiting for you. And of course, anyone from the Parliamentary Press Gallery watching this now will roll their eyes and say, but he's always late for every press conference, for everything. I can tell you right now, it really bugs me to be late.
Really?
My team
Does it
knows
really?
that I will be sitting there going, okay, can we accelerate this brief? Can we do it? And they're like, no, we have to make sure that you know the things that you're about to go and answer. I'm like, okay, but there's I am always trying to say, well, if people will wait for me, I should better never make them wait for me.
Wow.
And of course, the complexities of the world surrounding the role I have means that it's difficult to do, but as much as possible, I try to be on time.
But I mean, let's be honest, the plane's not going anywhere without the boss on it. Right?
Well,
that's true. Yeah.
No, but there are people waiting at the other end that
I understand.
Need to so it's not really not a lot happens on my whims in this, and it's a very good thing.
Right, good. Can you rest when you're traveling, or are you mostly reading briefs?
Traveling tends to be the time I get to read a novel
really?
or catch up on Netflix. I mean, I almost always have some work to do on a flight.
Right.
But I try to balance it a little bit, because if I don't, manage to unwind a little bit in the intensity of days, then you just end up losing kilter. So watching a series on my iPad, or reading a novel, or doing puzzles. I've been really into killer Sudoku these days. So there's lots of different things I try to use to relax. Although, and this is one of the conversations I have with Sophie all the time, because she's wonderfully yogic and meditative, and she's like, just clear your mind and don't think of anything. For me, clearing of my mind is that singular spot, right? Like if I focus on just one thing and don't have my brain going in 1,000 different directions, that is meditative for me. So whether it's a really hard logic puzzle or a movie or a novel I'm really into, or even when I do physical activity, when I go for a jog, my mind, goes in every different direction. If I'm in a boxing ring sparring, I have that singular focus, because as soon as your mind drifts, you get reminded very quickly you got to be focused. So I try to look at things where, instead of turning off my brain, I can just focus it on a single point, and then the rest sort of becomes more zen, I guess.
What have you liked this year? What have you been? Any movies stick out? Any Netflix series? And any novel that's been really, really scintillating for you?
Hard to say. I'm reading some sci-fi now. I'm reading various things. I'll pick up different things. I read so much that I churn through a whole range of things. But I spend so much time reading nonfiction for my job that getting a little fiction is helpful. In terms of series, I don't know. It's just a mix of things. Whatever. I mean, everyone's been raving about Ted Lasso, and sure, I love that. I got to
watch Succession.
Everyone's been saying that. I gave it an episode or two a few years ago when it just started. It's brilliant. It's amazing. Everything. I don't like to spend time with characters I don't actually like.
Right. Gotcha.
I mean, if I'm going to invest in following a story or people, I want to actually feel connected to them. And that's sort of, that connection to people is what my job and my life is all about. And I like to be able to choose to connect with people I actually like, I guess.
Yeah.
Hey Terry, how you doing?
And we should say that I used to host a radio show, and this conversation, I don't know how many of these we've had, my friend, but there's been a lot of them over the years.
I think, Ter, one of the very first ones was when I just came back from BC.
But BC,
so that would have been around 2002.
Okay, there you go.
Where I came in and we were just chatting. You said, "Oh, come on in," and I brought in my iPod, which was a big thing the size of a pack of smokes, millennials listening, about the size of a deck of playing cards.
Yes.
And it was, you know, I played Jeff Buckley's Hallelujah for you for the first time, and you were like, "Oh, we should play that. That's really good, and it's Canadian content too." I'm like, "Yeah, okay." My brother had shared that with me, but anyway, we had, we just made it a bit of a rhythm where we do that. We
had these great conversations, and every year you would introduce me to music, and every year you used to do that to the radio audience, introduce us to music. And I guess that'll lead me to the question: is anything caught your ear this year? Any bands? Like the problem is, the last couple of conversations we've had when I talk about music or movies and stuff like that, these have been exceptional, extraordinary circumstances that, you know, we've all been dealing with, but you especially as Prime Minister, you haven't had the time, have you?
It's been tricky. I've been falling back on the mainstays. Although I will say, when here we go with a little Montreal content. When Men Without Hats put out the I don't know what it was, 25th anniversary edition of what it's not called Safety Dance, it's called No Friend of Mine. It's this slow version of Safety Dance that is just anyway, that was one of the songs that hit me this summer, where I was like, okay, that's very cool. It's no friend of mine, no friend of mine. I'm like, okay, that's very cool. It's cool. worth checking out.
Okay. This is something, you know, that I'm fascinated with. I ask you this, you know, probably every year. I'm curious about what you do as Prime Minister. There's a change in government down in the States, and you have a new president to deal with. What happens? Does your people call his people and say the two bosses have got to get on the phone and talk? And when you're talking with a new president like Mr. Biden, how does that go? Do you somebody arranges a call and then you say, "Good afternoon, Mr. President. First of all, congratulations," and then just talk?
See, there's sort of a thing where the ones who've done it before ease the others into it.
Okay.
Like when I just got elected,
yes,
and had the first congratulation call from President Obama back in 2015.
Yeah,
it was like I'm chatting with him, and I'm going, it's like, and he goes, "Oh no, call me Barack." You know, I'm like, "Oh, okay, Barack." You know, there's a level of oh my gosh, I'm now on my third American president, right?
Gotcha.
But it's hard to, but even then it's hard to say, well, this is sort of the way you do it, because with Donald Trump, we reached out very, very early on in transition to establish some of those connections as they were trying to figure out, you know, what to do, because I think some of them in their team were sort of surprised they actually won, and were responding. I mean, many of them were very optimistic, but there was a whole, okay, let's figure out what to do. And we were in from the beginning through contacts, and setting up that personal relationship right away. When Biden won, well, I had a relationship with Biden already. I mean, I knew he'd come up to Montreal, he'd come up to Ottawa for a visit in the just before Christmas. We got along great, so it was very natural to reach out and have that conversation. But even then, like when I make those first congratulatory calls to whether it's a Boris Johnson or Emmanuel Macron or whatever, you can quickly set the tone of, oh no, it's going to be great to work with you. I usually give the piece of advice that there are going to be people running up to you with things that you have to sign right away before you have your systems in place. That's the public service trying to take advantage of you, and they do it with all the, bless them, all the goodness of their heart of trying to get something done. But you should know you can pause a second on something, no matter how urgent it seems, and really dig into it. Don't feel pressured into making quick decisions, because you've got time ahead of you and you're the one making the decisions right now. And it takes a few days usually for that to properly seep in. But those sorts of conversations are the things that we have amongst newly elected leaders.
This is the kind of thing that drives me crazy, is we forget you're now the experienced guy.
Well, I wouldn't say,
totally, you have this youth about you. You have this youthful appearance, and people forget. Like you said to me when we were talking, I'm not spilling the beans, but when we had our visit in the summer, you said, I really know this job now. I'm really beginning to really enjoy it. And that comes, I think a lot of people who've been in gigs for a while who have experience, like listening to you talk about, advising other leaders of the world, that comes with experience.
But it's like when you learn something new, when you do something new for the first time. I remember going through this when I was teaching friends how to snowboard. Your first couple of days on a snowboard, I mean, you come down to the end of the day and your little pinky is sore, the muscles in it, because you've just been tensing everything, and you're just totally, you're working muscles you don't need to work, right? Yeah. Once you've been doing something for a while, what matters. I mean, or a beginning driver, I mean, you're just everything is a cognitive exercise when you're driving. Then, you get a few years into it and you get a little more able to multitask. Being in the role of prime minister is very similar, where you learn how to focus on the things that really matter, and where a light touch here can set a whole thing in motion that you then don't have to worry about, while you do some heavy lifting over here, because this really requires your full attention.
Right.
And you learn how better to manage the real limit on the time you have to spend on a given issue or not, because there's only so many hours in the day. A number of them have to be in sleeping, because for me, sleep is key. I have to get enough hours of sleep every night, and I'm really pretty good about it. Some time with family, and then there's hours of work that you've got to slog through, and making best use of that is key. And you learn better about that once you're a few years in than you did in the very first weeks.
How many hours do you sleep a night?
About 8.
Do you really?
I try to go to bed around 10. 10 most nights. I'm up around 7.
This is a surprise to me, because you got a big birthday coming up. You've got a landmark.
What are you saying? Old people sleep less? Like, what are you saying? Terry?
That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying as you get older.
Well, I ain't old yet, my friend.
It's harder to get.
It's going to be many years.
No. Have you thought about the landmark birthday?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Birthdays come and go,
yeah, I know,
but just because there's a 0 beside it, people make a big deal out of it. Although when someone pointed out to me, I think there's 2 things that stuck with me, one negatively, one positively. Someone said, oh yeah, you're entering your 6th decade. I'm like, oh, I don't like the sound of that. And then someone else said, no, you're celebrating the 20th anniversary of your 30th birthday. I'm like, oh, I like that one. So you know what? It's an opportunity to reflect, but mostly it's an opportunity to know that there's still lots of work to do, and I'm really excited about doing it.
There's a lot of people in this country who have the copy of the newspaper from December 25th, all those years ago, with the announcement of your arrival into this world, who are going to be stunned to have realized that was 50 years ago. Jeez Louise. And I know because of our current circumstances, the celebrations will be muted. What are you going to do? How do you do it? Christmas,
well,
is it all Christmas, birthday, all mashed together?
Well, I mean, mostly I've decided that, you know what, it'll be fun for once to celebrate my birthday in the summertime. So we're hopefully going to be in a better place if everyone stays safe and does the things that we all know how to do, even though we don't feel great about having to do them. We know how to stay safe during this phase, and hopefully we'll be able to get into a better place, especially because as exhausted as we all are, our frontline health workers are even more exhausted. They've been doing even more in terms of just going nonstop for 2 years. And what we do over the next couple of weeks will make a huge difference. So my plans for Christmas and my birthday, hunker down with the family, do a little cross-country skiing. Hopefully, if there's enough snow down up in Gatineau Park, and just try and unwind and prepare for a big year.
Listen, you're always so kind to me, and we've been friends for so long. It's hard for me to understand and process the fact that you're prime minister sometimes, that we can sit and have a beer. I long for the day that we can do this in person, and we're just about out of time because, like I said, you're very, very, very generous with your time. But even for the prime minister, it's quitting time. So here's to you, my friend. Cheers. And
cheers,
I wish I was there to clink in person. Merry Christmas, happy birthday, and here's to a better 2022 for the love of Pete.
Please.
Please give my love to Soph and the family.
Thanks. Love to you and Jess. And thanks to everyone for tuning into the Terry Damani Christmas show in a alternate format this year.
Yes.
Next year we're planning on being holograms. So get your 3D goggles. I don't know. We'll figure it out, but we'll keep doing this as long as anyone will listen to us, dear friend.
It's an annual event. Cheers and love and warmth, pal.
Love and warmth there. Cheers.